On the Hawkeyes Sports Network from Learfield, this is the Fight for Iowa podcast. Brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy, proud partner of the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Big Ten Conference. Iowa's corn farmers of the Iowa Corn Growers Association and Iowa Corn Promotion Board. You may think Iowa grows corn, but the truth is, corn grows Iowa. Shields, we're right there with you in Des Moines, Sioux City, Iowa City, and Cedar Falls. University of Iowa Healthcare. Changing medicine, changing lives. This is the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
It's going to be a special offseason, if there is such a thing, for Iowa men's assistant basketball coach Sherman Dillard. Dillard, who came to Iowa with Coach Fran McCaffrey 14 years ago, was recently named to the 6-member Step Up Assistant Coaches Hall of Fame class to be inducted in Charlotte, North Carolina in late May. The selection committee is comprised of coaches, media, and sports professionals. The criteria includes respected among colleagues for high moral character and integrity, must have made significant contributions to the game and/or teams' coaches have been part of winning championship caliber programs. Sherman Dillard is that and much, much more. New Hall of Famer Sherman Dillard is our guest this week on the Fight for Iowa podcast, sponsored by Shields, Athletico, UIHC, and Iowa Corn. Back in just a minute.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
When it comes to your health, you need the full picture. That means the right diagnosis and the right treatment right from the start. I'm Aaron Bowes, pediatric neurologist with University of Iowa Healthcare. Here, we're working together every day to advance medicine so you can get the best care. With more research, more clinical trials, and more treatment options than anywhere else in the state, the University of Iowa Healthcare is changing medicine and changing lives. Learn more at uihc.org.
Tickets are on sale now for the Hy-Vee IndyCar Race Weekend Concert Series. Saturday, July 13th, see Luke Combs and Eric Church. And Sunday, July 14th, see Post Malone and Kelsey Ballerini live in concert. 1 ticket per day gets you into a race and 2 concerts. Tickets on sale now at HyVeeIndyCarWeekend.com.
Are aches, pains, or injuries keeping you on the sidelines? At Athletico, our movement experts are here to help you turn your setbacks into comebacks and create a personalized game plan for your recovery. With no prescription or referral needed, Athletico Physical Therapy is where your comeback story begins. Get started today by scheduling a free assessment at athletico.com. Proud partner of the Iowa Hawkeyes.
To anyone passing through our state, fields and fields of corn might be what they see. But the people who call Iowa home know it's so much more. Corn is ethanol, a homegrown, renewable fuel. Corn is delicious pork, beef, poultry, and dairy. Corn is in 4,000 products we rely on every day. So yeah, our highway views are full of corn, and we're proud of it. Because corn grows Iowa. Show your support for Iowa corn farmers at iowacorn.org/fan of corn.
Now back to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Hawkeye basketball coach Sherman Dillard officially joins the Assistants Hall of Fame in May. Dillard was a star at James Madison University, is a magna cum laude, and a member of the school's Athletics Hall of Fame. Dillard has been a head coach and an assistant coach for better than 4 decades, on staffs headed by, among others, Hall of Famers Lefty Driesell and Bobby Cremins. His track record for recruiting and developing players at Iowa speaks for itself. In the last 5 seasons, Iowa's won 105 games, led by All-Americans Luka Garza, Keegan and Chris Murray, Jared Utoff and Peter Jock, and all Big Ten selections, Devin Marble, Aaron White, and Jordan Bohannon. Not bad for a shy kid who grew up dirt poor in Virginia, who had a chance meeting and life-changing moment long before his college coaching days.
Goes back to, as a high school player, high school athlete, I had a high school coach. His name was Ernie Nestor, and quite frankly, Ernie Nestor changed my trajectory in my life. I grew up destitute in South Central Virginia, and as an 8th grader, I got cut from my team. 9th grader, I got cut. 10th grade, I transferred to a school closer to me, Bassett High School, where Ernie Nestor was the high school coach. I'd given up on basketball, and he pushed me into trying out, made the team, and then became somewhat successful because of his tutelage and his mentorship. And as I continued to develop and evolve as an athlete, I always look back and I reflect back on this man, Ernie Nestor, made me the person I am today. And I got to the point where I just wanted to be like Coach Nestor. And because the impact he had on my life, I wanted to continue to pursue a life where I could impact other lives. And I feel like now the reason I enjoy what I do is because I feel like I have a responsibility to the youth that I coach at any level to make sure that they not only develop as basketball players and as athletes, but as people and as persons, where they can live fruitful lives and go on to do big and better things in life, regardless of whether it's basketball related, if they go to the NBA. But I've coached guys that have gone on to work on Wall Street. And then now, 15, 20, 30 years later, you have a chance and you see these guys and you see how they develop. That's the thing that drives me most, first and foremost.
Good stuff. You worked for Hall of Famers, the incomparable Lefty Driesell, Bobby Cremins. You went to a Final Four with Coach Cremins at Georgia Tech, and your own head coach. I know I can only imagine you've been keeping an eye on JMU this week, James Madison, but. Head coach versus assistant coach. First off, talk about those two guys, Lefty and Bobby in particular, and how they influenced not only your coaching life, but your life.
Well, I got to know Coach Driesell when I was a student athlete at James Madison University, and I used to work at summer basketball camps. And after working at camp 3 or 4 years, I was coaching, get this, Gary, I was coaching 9th grade basketball back in my hometown in South Central Virginia. And in May, after my first year coaching there, I got a call from Lefty, and he said, Sherman, what are you doing now? I said, I'm coaching 9th grade basketball. He said, you ever thought about coaching college basketball? And he says, I said, of course. And he said, well, come work my camp again this summer like you always do. And he said, you and I will sit down at the end of the camp. We sat down at the end of the camp. He offered me the job. So I was 1 year removed from coaching 9th grade basketball, and now I'm sitting on the bench side by side with who turned out to be a Hall of Famer in Lefty Driesell. So I owe a great deal of where I am today to Coach Driesell. He gave me an opportunity when I was still, quote-unquote, wet behind the ears, and he taught me everything I know about the game in terms of particularly the recruiting aspect, and taught me about winning. Like he was so driven to win, and people have to understand this. You don't become a Hall of Famer like he did without doing things right. And so I'm forever indebted to Coach Driesell for giving me that opportunity at such an early age. And at that time, for 6 years I was there, we had some unbelievable teams, some great teams, All-Americans, with Buck Williams and Albert King and the late great Len Bias, and we won an ACC championship, made it to the Elite Eight one time, and so enjoyed a tremendous amount of success. And then that's when I really dug in and said, you know what, I want to make a living out of this thing. And so I've been so fortunate now to be able to do it for 39 years at the collegiate level, and so proud of that. But it's been a terrific run. And you mentioned Coach Bobby Cremins. I worked with some great people. Let's not forget the guy that coached me in college, Lou Campanelli. He was instrumental in my development as well, but as a player. And then after I left the University of Maryland, I decided to join Coach Campanelli at Cal Berkeley when he took over the job there in the Pac-10 at the time, and spent 3 years working with him. And it was sort of like a family reunion. I was out there with Coach Campanelli, my high school coach, Ernie Nestor. The three of us, we were determined to resurrect that program and rejuvenate that program, and I think we did. We went to 2 straight NIT appearances. And I guess, a lot of times, I say this all the time, Gary, like 1 is too small a number for success. And I've been blessed to have some people like Lefty Driesell and Lou Campanelli, Ernie Nestor, Bobby Cremins. Bobby, when I left Cal, I decided, I wouldn't leave Cal unless it was a great opportunity. And I'd spent 3 years at Cal with Coach Campanelli, helped him build that program or rebuild that program. And when I got with Bobby Cremins, again, one of the best coaches in the game, taught me a lot about X and O's, also taught me a lot about recruiting. Spent 6 years with Bobby there in Atlanta, Georgia. 1990, we in the Final Four in the NCAA tournament. So tremendous success, but being around good people, quality people, knowledgeable people, and great mentors, if you will. And so, again, I've just been very fortunate. I wake up every morning and say to myself, boy, you've had a good life. and I don't want to get into this, but from where I came from, and to be where I am today, I'm blessed beyond measure.
I won't ask you to pick a favorite. I'm talking about your days at Iowa here because you've recruited so many great ones. But let me ask you this: what separates the Garzas, the Murrays, the Bohannons of the world from mere mortals? Is it work ethic? Obviously, talent has a lot to do with it.
Talent is part of it. I don't know if you can get into the heart and soul of someone to ascertain whether they're going to be a great player. I just know I witnessed firsthand and up close and personal those great athletes you just mentioned. And I think the common denominator has always been they're driven to succeed. They want to be the best at their craft. And I think a lot of times the fans see athletes on TV, on the court playing, and they forget how much they work during the quiet times when no one is watching. And every one of those athletes you mentioned and the guys that I've coached during my tenure as an assistant coach and a head coach, those guys have tremendous work ethic, and they work hard at their craft, and it shows in how they play. They're also very ambitious. I think they all wanted to play at the next level. They wanted to be the best version of themselves on a day-to-day basis, but I think they had an ulterior goal of being an NBA player, of being able to play and earn a living doing what they love best. It's I wish I could point my finger at exactly what it is. I think it's multifaceted in terms of what makes the great, if you will. And I say this all the time. Some people just have it, and I think once you have it, and it starts when you're young, it doesn't falter. It doesn't leave you. I think you are just driven to be the best that you can possibly be. And I think a lot also has to do, and working with Coach McCaffrey here, and I've been with him the longest I've been with anybody, for 14 years. One of the best coaches at the game in terms of, obviously the X and O's, the relationships he has with people, not only teammates, our players, but people in the community. But he thrives on getting the best out of his athletes, out of his student athletes. And I've watched him again for 14 years and the relationship he has with his players, and how he can motivate them and push them to be the best that they can possibly be. And we talked about the other guys I work for, but the one guy that I'm truly indebted to right now, obviously, is Fran McCaffrey. And I don't know if you remember this, but, in all the years I'd coached, I had taken a short hiatus. 5 years I was working for Nike in grassroots basketball, but had this longer to get back into college coaching. And I thought it would be easy. I got a little bit ahead of myself, and I'm thinking, I could just pick my spot. I'll be a Power 5 assistant coach somewhere. Someone's going to pick up the phone and give Sherman Dillard a call. And that call never came, for quite frankly, for a year and a half. I did get an offer from Dartmouth, and no disrespect to Dartmouth, but they had offered me an associate head coaching job at Dartmouth probably a week before Fran McCaffrey offered me a job here at the University of Iowa. So I'm fortunate that Fran gave me that opportunity to coach, and I've been with him for 14 years now, and it's been a terrific run. Great teams, great players we've been able to coach. And again, I like I say, I wake up every morning saying I'm on a terrific ride here.
Dillard has coached in 18 NCAA tournaments, including a Sweet 16 and Final Four, won conference tournament titles and League Coach of the Year honors, and is now a Hall of Famer. Thank goodness Sherman Dillard and Coach Ernie Nestor crossed paths many years ago in that hallway at Bassett High School in South Central Virginia. That's the Fight for Iowa podcast this week. As always, thanks for listening. I'm Gary Dolphin. Go Hawks.
You've been listening to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Hawkeye fans, remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Once you become a Fight for Iowa podcast subscriber, you'll automatically receive the latest episodes of the Fight for Iowa podcast, the Hawkeye Women Rise podcast, Hawk Talk replays, exclusive game content, and more. Until next time, on Iowa, and go Hawks! The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.